We'll call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the April 10th meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council. Time flies. I thought it was August. No. We're glad that you're here. The first item on our agenda, we have reports, first from our manager. Jeff?
Okay, I just have to comment on a couple of things. The first thing is that I guess it was last week, we held our first Tri-Communities partnership meeting with Southern Pines and Aberdeen. And as you all know, there's been a lot of discussion about that previously and a lot of lead-up work, but this is the first time we actually got all of the delegates, if you will, in the same room and reviewed the charter. I think there's a lot of good energy, a lot of good positive attitude about where we're going. We didn't specifically get anything productive done yet because we're just starting, but it's good to be moving in the right direction on that project. The other thing I want to comment on is that earlier this week, John Boldry and John Cashin and I met with representatives from other communities in the county, here in Moore County, to review and develop a recommendation for TARPO with regard to how to prioritize transportation projects in Moore County so that they can eventually compete for DOT funding. And I'm going to be reviewing that during the work session, so it's not on the agenda. So for all who are here, if you have interest in that item, please hang around for the work session and you'll be able to see that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I think I'll go next. We had a very, very successful matinee race, or we call them the matinee races, this past Sunday. It's kind of a tradition here in Pinehurst. If you have never been to the matinee races, you should definitely go. And for those of you who aren't familiar with harness track racing and standard breds, we're probably going to have kind of an introductory session at the beginning of next season. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of horses in those barns. And a lot of people don't know it. But on usually the first or second Sunday in April, we have these matinee races where we can all go out and have a great time. And it was a very good time this year. So I'll just leave it at that. Kevin, you were there.
Yeah, I was there, and it was a wonderful day, and maybe it was, I think it was one of the biggest crowds I've ever seen.
We'll have to see. Garth might tell us.
But as far as just on our collaborative, we all serve on certain committees. I serve as a partner, a collaborator for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee in the Tri-Cities Work Group. I was sick, and so is Tom here? Tom canceled the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, but I also couldn't make it to the Tri-Cities meeting, but I'm so encouraged by reading the minutes from that meeting, Jeff, that, you know, when we're working together as a region, I already see the benefits. I wasn't at the meeting because I was sick. I see the benefits just looking at the minutes. It just really looks impressive. Finally, we're working together as a region, so it's pretty exciting for me, and even though I didn't attend that meeting, and that's really all I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Boldry.
I know Jeff's going to talk about our meeting with on the transportation effort that was yesterday. I think what's important, and we've reiterated this many times, but the schedule for additional public review and comment, there's a big date coming up, which is April the 17th. We've said this several times before, but I'm going to say it again. The Moore County Comprehensive Transportation Plan public meetings are going to be here on April 17th, and they're going to be from 6:30 to 8:30. Now, on the same day, on the 17th, they're going to start in Aberdeen from 3 to 5, and then they're going to move up here. Now, the Moore County Comprehensive Transportation Plan has been in the works for years, but there's an opportunity for the citizens and the residents of Pinehurst to come in, see what that plan entails, and then provide some feedback and comment. The next thing that's going to be important is on the 18th of April at our senior center. The county is going to get together and we're going to review the scoring that Mr. Cashin, Mr. Sanborn, and I went through, so that we have ranked 25 projects across Moore County. My opinion is I think we did extremely well, because the projects we thought were most important would include NC 5 from 211 down to the village, down to the south through the railroad trestle all the way to our village limit. It also includes the traffic circle. It also includes 15501 interchange, plus some others. So the village of Pinehurst, and many times in conjunction with our sister cities in Southern Pines and Aberdeen, there's some projects which are beneficial to all three of the communities. So, but the most recent dates are the ones that I just mentioned for public meetings, and Jeff's going to go into the details. It's a very unusual scoring system. We're in Division 8, of which there are 8 different counties, to include some much larger municipalities. And so the scoring is scoring for us is really important, and we have high hopes at the moment of competing very well across all in this division. And then when those scores go up to the state level, we'll be very successful there too. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, John. Judy?
I'll talk a little bit about the Givens Memorial Library. Our working group has really started cooking, thanks to some work by Stuart Mills and Jeff Sanborn to lay out a plan for us, which we agreed on at our very last meeting. And as we get further along into this, there will be some opportunity for public comment on the ideas about how to go forward with the library service for our village. So stay tuned to this space.
Okay, thank you, Judy. John?
Okay, this morning I was at the Partners in Progress meeting, and it was all about the schools. And we're fortunate to have somebody come from the schools today to talk about what's going to happen over the next month or two. Elena?
Okay. Wait a minute, we have the consent agenda. We have to follow our agenda. Just 1 minute. I just want to say one more thing. On Wednesday, John, you and I both attended the Sister Cities concert. This was, there were 6 Irish children who came over kind of as an exchange, and they provided some unbelievable music. Denise Baker, Kevin's sister, was in charge of the whole thing. It was just an awesome evening.
Judy was there, right?
Yeah, I was there. But I also want to just, think about if we do something like that next time, who will be the Liam out of our group? That one of their council members.
Yes, exactly, because you and John and Kevin all went to the lunch with the, I think Claire was our kind of liaison to the Sister Cities project. So we need to find a new liaison, and we will do that. So any other comments from our reports? Okay, let's do the consent agenda, and then we will go right to the bond referendum presentation. The consent agenda, all these items are routine and can be enacted in one motion.
I move to approve all the items listed and consider routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by John Baldry and a second by John Cashin. Is there any discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Lauren. That's unanimous. And next we have our presentation about the May 8th bond referendum. Helena Wallen Miller.
Thank you very much for having me today. I am here as a parent. I am here as a member of the Yes campaign for the bond referendum, and I'm happy to give you some more information about what the bond referendum will be doing for Moore County. And I'm so happy to see some parents and principals and others here today, so thank you. I really want to take this opportunity to ensure that you all know what the bond referendum is for. There has been some discussion about it in the paper, and we are going to town councils to make sure that all the council members are aware of what it's for. to make sure that all questions are answered that can be answered at this time, and really just inform the public, and that is our purpose for being here today. I'm also here as a Pinehurst resident. Both my children go to West Pine Elementary, and it's important to me when I look at what the Village Council and their support of the referendum, that's an important thing that me as a parent am looking for. Whoops. All right.
Anybody have any questions for?
Not yet. Let me get through this. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is to make sure that you all knew that there are 2 bond referendums on the ballot on May 8th. One is for the elementary schools that I'll talk more in depth about in a moment. The second is for Sandhills Community College for a nursing facility. A little bit about myself. When I first moved here 14 years ago, we came here really for 2 reasons. One, we wanted to get away from the traffic of Fairfax County, Virginia, for any of those of you who have lived there. And secondly was to think about a different kind of lifestyle that we wanted to have for our family. And to do that, we needed to be able to get employment, and we needed to have good schools. So when I look at this bond referendum, I see it as actually hitting both of those for my family particularly. My husband was able to find a job at First Health of the Carolinas. He's an administrator in one of their programs. I was able to telecommute from home, and we have 2 children, and we would not have done that had it not been for the strength of our school system. So this, for me personally, is also very important. The nursing facility, the plans for the community college are to consolidate their nursing program into one space. They are looking at trying to graduate more nurses. The current facilities don't account for some of the new technology that is happening in the hospitals to be able to train them effectively so that they're ready to go right into the hospitals or into nursing facilities around town. And so having a place to ensure that our residents have the services they need from our nurses to be able to graduate more nurses and to have more, to have them graduate with more skills right away is an important part of the Sandhills Community College bond. The second bond on the ballot is really for the schools, and that's what I'm here to show you to talk a little bit more about today. First thing that you need to know is that we are not building 3 new schools. We are rather consolidating 4 schools into 2 schools and then rebuilding 1. We're not adding to our school footprint. We are actually becoming more efficient and more effective in how we educate our children here in Moore County by building schools that are safer, that are more economically advantageous to operate, and that are better learning environments for our kids. All 5 schools that you see on top of this slide were built in the 1930s and 40s, long time ago. And they were built as high schools, pre-segregation. And so they were built with different parts of the an open campus feel is what I would say. They have, a cafeteria in one end of the building or outside. They have a gymnasium outside, an auditorium outside. Children are often walking outside in different kinds of weather to get to parts of the building and parts of the campus that they need to. And that was appropriate for high school students in the 30s and 40s. Now, in the day and age that we're at, we really like to have all our elementary students in one big building with secure access and in an environment that provides the technology, the space, and the facilities so that they can learn the way that you learn today. You don't sit in row upon row with a pencil and paper looking at the blackboard anymore. You're on the floor. You're in front of a smart board. You have laptops in front of you or a cart in front of you, iPads in front of you. Learning is different. You're still learning a lot of the same things, but how you learn is different. And so it's really important that our buildings are built in such a way that our children have the best, the knowledge is shared in a way that is the most appropriate. So quickly, there are 2 schools in Aberdeen, Aberdeen Primary and Aberdeen Elementary, that will be consolidated to one kindergarten through 5th grade school. There are 2 buildings in Southern Pines Primary and Southern Pines Elementary, that will be consolidated into one K-5 school, and then Pinehurst Elementary School will be rebuilt completely. What this does, in addition to building new facilities that are appropriate for children, is that it will allow us to save on our operational costs. These buildings will all be energy efficient with geothermal. We will not put solar panels on it right away, but they are situated so that they could, if at some point in the future, solar becomes the return on investment for solar becomes such that we can afford it and it gives us the investment we need. But we're prepared for that. We are using materials that will last for a long, long time. The brick buildings on the outside will have geothermal, as I mentioned. Our windows will help ensure that we are insulated appropriately. All of those things will reduce our operating costs from a maintenance and facility standpoint, but we will also be going down from having two principals to one in Aberdeen, from having two principals to one in Southern Pines. Same with assistant principals, data managers. We'll be able to be more efficient in how we operate our services for our children and save money in the long term, which is a benefit to our taxpayers. I want to show you some pictures now, because I think it's important that for those of you who don't live in the Southern Pines and Aberdeen area and have not spent time in those areas to see what the schools look like. I will first say that everything that happens inside these schools is fantastic. If you have ever spent any time with these principals or teachers or families or kids, it is a joyous place to be, and there is so much learning and excitement going on. What bothers me as a parent and as a citizen of Moore County is when I come up and see what these look like on the outside. This is what buildings built in 1930s and 40s often look like today. We see it in other places around town. But this is what we want to replace. So this is what Aberdeen looks like currently. Aberdeen Primary is in the upper left, and Aberdeen Elementary is in the lower right. The new Aberdeen school is ready to go. All we're waiting for is the vote yes. The week after vote yes, these plans, if the community agrees, these plans, with the bond referendum, these plans will go out for bid. This is the outside of the building. It is the building location is off of Route 5. The road, I can't remember the road name, but where the old Sand Pit Golf Course is, the Pit Golf Course, it's across the street from that. And back in that wooded area back there. So it's off Route 5. There'll be plenty of room for people to pull in and go back in there for drop-off. It's a wonderful facility. If you have a chance to go on our website, there's the architects have provided a virtual reality type look on it, which is interesting. But this school is ready to go, and we're very excited for that to happen. Southern Pines Primary and Elementary, we have similar issues. Wonderful, wonderful things happening on the inside. If you have ever been inside those for programs or for events in the community, they're really beautiful schools in terms of the heart and soul. When you look at the outside and you see there's no AC in a lot of these buildings, so they have the units on the outside. The windows are not efficient in terms of retaining heat and cool in the summer. It is time to replace these buildings. The new K-5 elementary school, if you're familiar with the Morganton Roads corridor, so this is Morganton Road, where that arrow is on the bottom is where the new Lowe's food store is. If you see that on the bottom. And I don't know if anybody has a pointer. I'm just going to point myself. Do you have a pointer? Yeah, so this is the entrance right here. Yeah, so right there is where that light is with the famous toastery and the theaters or the Lowe's food store. You would go back behind there into that new development on Morganton Park North. And the school is off to the right. What I really like about this, which we can't do a lot in a rural community because we are a rural community, you cannot always build in walking distance, right? But here we will be able to have families that live in the West Southern Pines area and other areas there potentially walk and bike to school, which is very exciting. As a parent, I would find that exciting. Pinehurst Elementary, this is your school here in Pinehurst. As you know, this was also built in the 1930s as a high school. It is at the point, it's not only age, so it has an age issue in terms of maintenance and being able to keep it up to appropriate standards, but there's a growth problem. 40% of the school does not fit in the school, so they are out in our learning cottages outside. And so that's in the entire 4th and 5th grade are outside. What that means is when it's raining or when it's cold or when it's windy, they are constantly going inside, back and forth to get to lunch, to get to the gymnasium, to get to the auditorium, to go talk to anybody in the principal's office if that has to happen. And so it's not a comfortable space for them, and it's not appropriate for elementary age children. The picture is from their cafeteria. My children were actually there for a couple of years when we had the year-round program, and I have sat in that cafeteria when it's that booked. And those kids are eating lunch from about 9:45, 10:40, all the way till about 1 or 1:30. So they have to stagger the lunches to be able to push them through, because the reality is they can't prepare as many lunches as they need to support those kids all at one time, so they have to stagger them. And they would do that anyway, but it is quite crowded, I will say, but energetic, and very energetic.
Very energetic.
So that is Pinehurst Elementary, and that's right down the street from you all. One thing I've been asked about is, well, what's this new building going up on Camp Easter Road? So I wanted to make sure that you all understood that there is a limited obligation bond. Our county commissioners authorized the use of a limited obligation bond that does not require the need of a vote in order to build a new school for the Area 1 school. So Area 1 is that is serviced by Union Pines High School. Sandhills Farm Life and Vast Lakeview are severely overcrowded. I mean, I would say you're severely overcrowded too, but both of those schools are severely overcrowded. Sandhills Farm Life particularly, we had to add 2 more learning cottages in front of the school last year. And with the new class size reduction requirements coming down, we're looking at how to add even more. We had to move on this one quickly. The commissioners agreed with us. Construction has started. That picture in the left is now outdated. There's apparently concrete. The footing has been done and all that kind of stuff. So it is going up, and it will open in 2019. So there are other needs in our community that the commissioners have been working with us closely on. They have visited all the schools. They understand the needs, and we're very grateful for their support. Northmore is also, you're going to hear about Northmore, is looking at having some updates, phase 1 updates that we've been planning for a while. To ensure that they have adequate and equitable facilities and safe as well. So we're working through those. The last thing I will say, before I get to this slide, let me say one thing. The first question people ask me is, how much is this going to cost me as a taxpayer? And so what we have talked about with the county commissioners is that they are looking at a range of a possible impact on property taxes, anywhere from 5 to 8%. So I want to make that, thank you, 5 to 8 cents per $100 valuation. Are you getting this right, David Sinclair? Okay. Yeah. For $100 valuation on your property tax. So what does that mean in reality? So, and again, they don't know, because you don't know that until the interest rates are locked in. They might have other opportunities for financing that they're looking at. So, you know, until the bond referendum is passed, a lot of those things don't get solidified. And a bond referendum, from what I understand from this whole process, is one of the best ways to finance schools. You're going to get the best interest rates because Moore County itself has a AA bond rating. And so it is the way to finance schools that is the most advantageous to taxpayers, I will say that. So what is 5 to 8%? What is 5 to 8 cents on a $100 valuation? For every $100,000 value of your home, it'll be about $50 to $60 a year for every $100,000 valuation. So think about that. That could be, you know, $5 a month for each $100,000. So think about that personally, what that means, and the value that brings back to you as a homeowner when you go to sell your home, or just into the value of your community when you have schools that are appropriate for kids. That's what this is about. We need appropriately sized, appropriately constructed schools for our youngest students here in Moore County. Does that answer the question? I know I had heard several of you ask me that question. The last thing I will say is that we have some opportunities for folks to connect with us. We have a website. The campaign has a website. There's a Facebook page. Hopefully we'll get some pictures up there, more pictures up there from today's activities. This is one of 5 events that we've been at today talking about the bond. We are looking for donations, so there's a donate button on the web page. We're also looking for volunteers. And what we're asking the community to do, when you're out golfing, when you're out with your parents, friends, when you're out to dinner, when you're talking with your neighbor, is to tell them about this vote. Primary elections in general do not elicit a lot of people to go out and so to vote. So what I'm encouraging folks to do is to talk it up, and you have many opportunities to vote starting next week. Early voting starts April 19th. The last day to register is this Friday if you haven't registered or checked your registration. And if you wait until May 8th, make a party of it, go to breakfast, go vote. You know, Make it something that is, that you're proud, that you are saying that you are supporting the educational future of Moore County. There are some dates here. This Friday and Saturday, we're kicking off the campaign, our yard sign distribution at Aberdeen Lake Park. And then between 4 and 6, we encourage everybody to come out on Friday. There'll be music, there'll be food trucks, there'll be face painting, games for the kids, lots of, we've arranged for a lot of fun activities. And then on Saturday, the campaign office will open right next to the Beltry. And we are looking for volunteers to stop by, find out how you can help and get engaged, because this is something that everybody needs to be engaged. That is all I had.
Hey, Helena, I think the only thing you left out is the fact that you're currently the chair of our Moore County Board of Education.
That as well, yes.
She forgot to say that.
I wear a lot of hats.
Wear a lot of hats. You're a parent. You are the chair. You are, supporting this campaign. And I will say personally that I think you have done a wonderful job with the campaign. And we have a resolution that we're ready to look at. But before that, if there are any questions from council first. Judy?
I just have one question. On the slide on the schools, you said that Aberdeen and Southern Pines were a K to 5. Is that the same thing for Pinehurst? Is it also K to 5?
Aberdeen and Southern Pines right now have 2 schools. One is K through 2, and one is 3rd through 5th. So they're split. Their elementary school is split. When they are built, they would be built as one K-5 school, which is a wonderful opportunity to bring the families together. So the new schools will be K-5.
And then what, is Pinehurst also
K-5.
going to be K to 5?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just making Pinehurst bigger because
Okay.
it cannot
Yes.
handle all the students it has now.
And where can we go to get vote yes buttons or whatever?
I have some. Come to the campaign office on Saturday. We will between 10 and 5. We will
Great.
also be open on Sunday from 1 to 5 from here on out. And then on Wednesdays through Fridays, we'll be open from 4 to 8 every evening. So we look forward to lots of energy and excitement in the office.
Any yard signs?
Yard signs will be there too. We'll distribute them both at Aberdeen Lake Park on Friday from 4 to 8. From 4 to 6, and then Saturday all day at the campaign office and Sunday until they run out.
Until they run out. Okay. Other comments from council members? Are there any comments from our attendees? Yes, sir. Would you come up to the mic, please? We are audio and video recorded, and it will sound like just a blank noise. There will be no noise.
I usually sound like a noise, so it's not a
Okay,
problem.
that's all right.
In light of today's society, are there additional security measures being built into these schools, such as security cameras and current type of apparatus that are built into the new schools?
They will be built to modern safety standards, and believe me, it's something that we are sad that we have to consider given today's environment, but yes, we have single point of entry, security cameras. I haven't seen all the plans. We have looked at everything to ensure that the safety of our children is paramount.
Room, I'm assuming, will have locks on the doors and such stuff. Is
Oh,
that
yes, yes.
okay.
They will be.
Just more modern things. There are some schools that even go so far as to have suppression systems in it where they fog the hallways so that the individual, the active shooter, cannot see what's going on. I don't know if we'll go that far or not, but
We have to balance a lot of things, but safety is a priority for these new schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from attendees? Yes, ma'am. If you would, please state your name.
Hi, Patty Engelking. I just missed, where's the early voting?
Where is early voting? It is only in one place. It's at the Carthage Agricultural Center. Do you know where that is? Okay. We have an address. We can give it to you, too.
From Pinehurst
Avenue
Right.
in Carthage in the Ag Center.
Any other comments from attendees? Yes, ma'am. Your name?
Lynn Goldhammer from Pinehurst. When will the added tax begin, if it's voted in in May of this year?
I believe they're looking at 2019. They're doing a reevaluation then, so all of that will happen all at the same time.
Okay. I'm just conscious of the fact that anytime we need more money, we keep looking at taxing the taxpayers. And I kind of have another thought beyond that, and that is that the developers who are here building up Pinehurst and Southern Pines and our entire area, most of them don't even live around here. And they come in and they start building everything up, and it creates the need for these things, more roads, wider roads, and more schools and everything else. And I would rather see this put on them, that for every new home built, house, townhouse, condo, or apartment, they get taxed $10,000 to put into a fund that would go to pay for these schools, and when we exceed as much as we need then, put it in for roads or other infrastructure that'll be needed to keep up with all of this. Because these people come in and they build it up, and when there's nothing left, they leave and they do it to someone else, and we're always stuck with the final costs of all this. And I think it's more fair to put it on them. And likewise, even the bond for the college, the main recipients who benefit from this are the hospital and First Health and stuff. Why don't we see about them helping to fund that? They're the main recipient of the benefit of putting in this big new nursing program at the college. So while it doesn't seem like a whole lot, that we're only going to get like maybe $100 or more, added to our taxes, that's for this one thing. Within 5 years, we'll be putting in more schools, more roads, more of everything, and it will go up and up and up. And I'm sure most everyone here has already escaped that from other places north, like New York, New Jersey, Virginia, everything else. So it will keep going up. So I just think there's value in looking at, other than the taxpayer, ways to fund these additional things. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Other comments? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name. I've seen you before.
Yes, my name is Emily Richardson. I'm the PTA president over at Pinehurst Elementary School. I have my 3 kids, Ashley, Davy, and James, who are in 4th, 2nd, and kindergarten. And so my daughter is one of the ones who's out in the trailers. And what's actually interesting, and while I love the campus concept, is that our 4th and 5th graders don't actually go inside the school for any of their classes. Every single one of their classes and their electives happens in buildings that are separate or outside or in trailers, including music and AIG. So we're really looking forward to this new school being built, and I wanted to come up and say thank you to you all, because it's my understanding that the village has worked really hard and fought to keep Pinehurst here in the village of Pinehurst. Yeah. And one of the things when we moved here, my husband works at Ingersoll Rand in Southern Pines, that we looked at, and the reason we chose Pinehurst Elementary School, and we only looked in that district, was because of its location. And we saw how the school was able to utilize the village and walking field trips and the parks and rec and everything that kind of creates something special about Pinehurst Elementary School. So I know that many parents, including myself, were so excited that you all are moving forward, and we're hopeful this bond will pass and that we're able to maintain that really important something special that Pinehurst Elementary has with its location in the village. So thank you all very much for your support, and I hope that you all will continue to be really vocal supporters of the bond, and I hope to see some of y'all at the April 13th or 11th events that we're having out there with a bunch of community members. It would be wonderful to see some community and political support. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We have worked with the Board of Education, with the facilities administrator, because we have heard from all of you that we want to keep our community school, and that's what we're going to be able to do, hopefully. Any other comments? Judy?
I have one more question about the voting. You said it's both for the elementary schools as well as the Sand Hills College. Are we actually voting on 2 issues on the ballot?
Yes, there are 2 separate ballot issues. Thank you for asking that question. And they're both worded specifically, one for the elementary school and one for the nursing education centers. Okay. So they're both on the ballot. So you'll have to fill in 2 bubbles.
2 bubbles, everyone.
Yeah, 2 bubbles. And I do want to point out that my understanding is that unaffiliated voters can pick from any one of the 4 ballots that are available. And so there will be one that says nonpartisan that just has those 2 issues. So anybody can vote as long as you're registered.
Okay, any other comments from either council or from our attendees? Yes, ma'am.
I just had a comment about the lady who spoke. I think it was a valuable comment, and is this something that, I don't know at what level of support that they might be able to give in these other directions, but is this something that you would consider?
Are you talking about taxing a new home builder?
And the health?
Well, the home builder, I don't think we can tax the hospital, but taxing every new home that's built is called an impact fee. And we have not, we do not have the authority to do that. What we're looking at is that the impact of better educational facilities really does benefit all of us.
Oh, I realize that.
Yeah.
But
so
this is a...
We have not...
Who has the authority?
Well, the state has withheld the authority, as far as I know. Jeff, I know you've looked into this.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the subject, but we have seen cases where, even in Carthage, where impact fees have gone through the court system, and the ruling has come back not favorable for local jurisdictions on impact fees.
Sorry to hear that.
Right.
Oh.
And if I could add just one more thing, too, that this is our opportunity now to build these schools. These types of conversations, I think, are valuable to have in the future in terms of helping us maintain them and keep them up. But this is the opportunity we have right now to build these schools, and it's really important that we all understand the urgency of this vote here on May 8th so that we can start building, because tax rates, interest rates are still pretty good, and so the sooner we get started, the better. These other conversations would be valuable in the future for helping potentially finance or some other type thing. This is not my area of expertise, but really focusing on what we have right now and what we can do in the next month to ensure that the future of our children are insured.
Thank you, Helena. We have a resolution that the Village Council is presented with. If we are willing to pass it, we will then take a group photo. So is anybody going to, is anyone?
I will enthusiastically move to approve Resolution 18-09, supporting the bond referendum for new schools in Moore County.
Second.
We have a motion by Kevin Drummond, a second by Judy Davis. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. That is unanimous, and we're going to break for just a moment for a photo op. So please, just give us a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Good thing you guys dressed for it.
Yeah.
They even have their books. Isn't that good stuff? Reading children. Reading is fun. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I don't know if this helps, but I thought that important to note that the reason I wanted to make that motion is it saves us money. They could still build the schools using a more expensive tactic than a bond. So it's really to save us money to go the bond route. Yeah.
It's the least expensive way to borrow money. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you. We had the principal of our elementary school, Ashley Ciccone. We also had our facilities manager, John Barath, from the schools. Our next item is number 5. Jeff, do you want to take that?
Okay, and I'm going to ask Mark Wagner, and I think Garth Henry might be coming up as well. This is a request for sponsorship, and I guess I'd just like to make some opening remarks to set the stage for this. This is a request to basically continue support to the Drivers and Trainers Club using the Fair Barn in conjunction with and in support of the matinee races that we all enjoy the benefits of every year. We have historically done this, but there's a couple of things going on here that are involved with why we asked Garth to come in and make this request. The first is a couple of years ago, the council adopted a new policy with regard to sponsorship. And I guess we just never really brought this particular agreement up to snuff with regard to that, that particular policy. And so we kind of need to do that. That's probably the biggest reason we're here. And then the second thing that's going on is that in the future there's a request to move this event from Sunday until Saturday. A little bit of concern about how that will impact wedding rentals in the Fair Barn. But apart from that, it's really kind of the same thing. And so, you know, this is a Category C event, which means that if you decide to continue to support the event by co-sponsoring and then allowing the free use of the Fair Barn to support the event, then in subsequent years it'll just come back to staff and we'll review the, you know, just do a sanity check on whether or not anything significant has changed, and we'll act on those future years at the staff level.
Jeff, just for clarification, will this be for both Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, I believe the idea is that this would allow them to have the opportunity for a rain date on Sunday should the weather be bad on Saturday.
Exactly,
so I think
right.
that's the intention, yes.
And what bride wants to have a wedding when there's a horse race going on?
We actually had one in 2014. It did not go well, so we
Oh my gosh.
we would not
I
do
didn't know
that
that.
again. Yes.
I did not know that.
It was a very interesting learning experience.
I bet
that
it was,
we learned
yeah.
that we did not want to do it again.
You don't want to do that anymore. Okay, all right. Garth, do you have some comments that you want to make? Into the mic, so it will be recorded.
Thank you all for hearing me today. Just to give you a little bit of history, we always had it on Sunday because our main competition for this type of event was the steeplechase at Stony Brook. And since they're no longer having that, Saturday is a better day for an event than a Sunday, we felt. And we were always at the mercy of the weather. We had kind of one shot to get it done, and if Sunday turned out bad, we were, you know, we just had a bad day. Mm-hmm. This would just allow us the flexibility of, you know, having a weather event and being able to still have our race day. And now that we don't have the competition from Stony Brook, we're kind of the spring equestrian event in town, and it would just give us the flexibility to, you know, do a better job and prevent some weather incidents from blocking our day. That was the impetus that kind of started the whole discussion. Yeah.
Also, over the past several years, the country club has added, over on the other side, they have added, I don't know how many hundreds of people, but they have added a tent and very nice seating for country club members. And my understanding is they had a bar in the middle and seating all around and food at another tent. So it's become a very important event to the country club as well. So they're having a lot of demand for seating for the matinee races.
Yeah, they had over 300 people this year, went from 100 to 200 to 300 in the last 3 years.
Wow. Can you say how many overall came? How many did we have?
That's a very tough calculation, but it's in excess of 5,000 for sure.
And you're pretty well maxed out. It's difficult to find more space. Is that
our
correct?
problem is not getting more clients or patrons. It's just handling the ones we have properly from standpoint of traffic and vendors and bathroom facilities, you know, all the issues that come with having 5,000 people in one place at one time. Yeah.
And I think I kind of said my piece at the beginning of the meeting that this is just an incredible asset to our village. It's something that we want to preserve and maintain. I know your family has been coming for how many years?
I don't know. You didn't need a ticket when I was going. So it was that long ago. I know that. It's an incredible celebration of you guys coming down here. And, you know, I think people need to know that we get rental fees from the standard bred totaling over $200,000 a season. I think it's important to say that so people understand it's related to that. Not really, not directly related, but it's important to note it's kind of a celebration of the end of your season here, and then you leave shortly, right?
Yep, that's the end of the season. The horses are getting quite ready to race. And the other thing that we had discussed the last couple of years with the Birdie discussions, that the economic impact for the town, just from the standpoint of whether it be services to the horses, feed, veterinarian, blacksmiths, rental of properties. Just a quick number is that the 3 local feed stores sold in excess of $300,000 worth of feed to the racetrack this year. That's just the feed. It has an economic impact on the business community as well.
Sure. Garth, are you not the veterinarian to the horse?
That's my profession, yes.
But you don't do it when you're here?
When I'm not sitting with my president's hat on, that's my job.
I see. Okay, I understand. Garth is a veterinarian, but there are also veterinary fees that are paid to local veterinarians.
Yeah, very much so.
Again, I will just say there are millions of dollars worth of horses in those barns. And, people riding by an NC5, they might see a horse. If you play golf, you might see more horses. But it is a very valuable asset to our community. And we really appreciate your patronage. And we really want to continue to support the Pinehurst Driving and Training Club, of which you are president. So are there any questions from council members?
One other comment, that a Saturday date will also not interfere with the Masters Sunday for the future.
Yeah. Well, that's a big thing as well.
It is a big thing as well.
Have you been in charge of weather, by the way? You've had an incredible weather streak.
It's got to come to an end soon.
You can't count on that forever.
It can't happen year after year.
Garth, I want to thank you for your innovative ways of presenting to the different races. There was one particular. The ladies were racing, and it was a breast awareness race. So that was
cancer awareness, not breast awareness.
Yeah, cancer, but they were all dressed in pink.
Yeah, and we raised over $1,200 for cancer research by auctioning off the 5 pink whips.
Great.
I don't mind saying that I bet on the #1 horse, who was called Panty Raid. And my horse was racing very strongly against Save the Tatas. So your mayor was out there yelling, "Go Panty Raid, beat the Tatas." It was a very innovative thing to do, and it was such a wonderful charity event. So we thank the ladies for that. All pink. Everybody was in pink, and they had pink, what do you call those? Whips, yeah, and they gave them away to the winners. So it was a very exciting event.
That race went over particularly well.
It really did. Yeah. It really did. Okay. Thank you, John, for mentioning that. Okay. Do we have a motion on our? Do we have to just consensus?
No motion required.
Okay. We're just going to reach consensus that we're going to approve the usage for 2 days for 2019, and our full support of the Driving and Training Club. In fact, I think we need to have some more education, public education, about what goes on out there, and I know you'll be cooperative about that. So let's plan on that for next year, doing something on an educational basis.
For sure.
How long are you in town, Garth, before you leave?
All this week. Yeah.
It'd be good to talk with you before you leave.
Right.
I'll make a point to stop
Okay.
over.
We have consensus that we're going to support you for next year, and we're looking forward to it. It's just such a fun day. Really
Thank you
is.
all.
Thank you, Garth. Garth Henry is from Canada, as many of our horsemen and trainers, owners, trainers are from Canada and from the Northeast. They come here for the wonderful weather. Thank you, Garth. Sorry we didn't have really great weather this year, but you had it worse where you were. Okay, number 6, I think Jeff is going to take that?
Yeah, I've got this one, and this is our annual snapshot of the strategic operating plan, or a preview of that plan for this year. And I guess I'm going to ask for Lauren's help as navigating through the slideshow. And if we go to the next slide. So this is what we're going to cover. I'm going to talk about our initiative action plans that are associated with this 5-year window, opportunities for innovation and improvement, and then review the 5-year financial plan for those 5 years. And again, I'd like to highlight, this isn't intended to be a detailed budget summary. It's really just intended to be an azimuth check to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. Okay, slide. And so we're going to start talking about our initiative action plans here very shortly, but I kind of want to set the stage by going back to the strategic retreat that we started in December and then ended in January, and call to everybody's attention and refamiliarize all the council here that as a result of that collaboration, you all settled in on a set of strategic opportunities and challenges that we thought were important for our community. And on the left side of the slide, you can see the strategic opportunities, and then on the the right-hand side of the slide, you see the challenges. And I'm going to go ahead and read them off because I think they are very important. With regard to the opportunities, number one, plan for the long-term future of the village. Second, create a vibrant retail center in the village. Third, expand cultural and recreational programs and activities. Fourth, partner and collaborate with others on regional issues. Fifth, utilize technology to improve services. Sixth, create a pedestrian-friendly community. And seventh, develop future leaders. And then on the challenges side, you can see the list, but I'll start off with responding to increased demand for services and changing needs due to growth. And then secondly, managing the impact of that growth on the character of our village. Third, financial pressures for potential library support in the future. And also we talked about the school bond, and if that comes to fruition, that is going to put some demand, financial or some pressure on our financial situation. Not a big deal, but it's there. Fourth, changing in the housing market. Fifth, attracting and retaining workforce members. And sixth, create a walkable community. Slide. In addition to those opportunities and challenges, you as a council also identified 4 areas of focus at the retreat. They were to ensure quality residential development, to ensure quality business development, maintain high-quality streets, and provide recreational programs and events for all ages. And before I go further, what I want to call attention to is that our plan, what we've been doing over the last couple of months as a staff is pulling together a plan, a work plan, and a related budget that's intended to address all of these opportunities, challenges, and these areas of focus. Slide. And so this is an attempt to describe how our initiative action plans address the strategic opportunities that we saw a couple of slides ago. And you can see across the top of that in kind of the darker brown color going left to right, the different strategic opportunities that were listed previously, itemized 1 through 7 across the top. And then down the side of the chart, you can see the initiative action plans that we have identified for this 5-year window. They include the doing police department accreditation, relocating the current EMS facility to beside our fire station right next door over here. And for everybody's information, the EMS facility is a county facility, but this is a situation where we are partnering with them to create a better situation for both parties and our community. The long-range comprehensive plan is an IEP. Streetscape enhancements, pedestrian connectivity, street lighting, recreational facilities, permit and inspection process improvement, and that's really a continuation of efforts that began this year. The National Baldrige Award, and succession planning. And as you can see on the chart, and this is not a perfect representation of how these different IEPs address the opportunities. In some cases, it's a very clear one-to-one relationship, and in some cases, it's a little bit more difficult to describe, but this is the way the staff sees it with regard to how these different IEPs address the opportunities. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions on those to the best of my ability, if you have any before we go any further.
Any questions before we go any further? Okay. Thank you.
Then moving on to the strategic challenges, and this slide is set up in a very similar manner. You see the challenges now delineated 1 through 6 across the top of the slide, and it's the same initiative action plans, this time in the second column rather than the first. In this slide, we show how these initiative action plans are also aligned against our balanced scorecard goals, just to make sure that we keep our efforts fully nested with what we see as priorities across the community. And again, the intent here is to show you that these IAPs do in fact address the strategic challenges that you identified during the retreat. Before I go any further and ask for further questions, I probably should have highlighted this in the last slide, but you can see here again on this slide, some of those IAPs are in red font. And they're in red font because they are specifically the IAPs that address the areas of focus that I covered a couple of slides ago. And again, those areas of focus were 1, ensure quality residential development, 2, ensure quality business development, 3, maintain high quality streets, and 4, provide recreational programs and events for all ages. In the case of the long-range comprehensive plan, we believe that that effort will address all 4 of those challenges. It's comprehensive for a reason. With regard to the streetscape enhancements, we think that that's important to maintaining high-quality streets, as well as ensuring high-quality business development, because those streetscape enhancements are really tied to our business centers. With regard to street lighting, that's a little bit more loosely tied to maintaining high-quality streets and places where people feel comfortable being outside at night and walking and those types of activities. And then with regard to our recreational facilities, that's specifically tied to the 4th area of focus, which is provide recreational programs and events for all ages. And again, I'll pause if anybody has any questions on this alignment.
Perhaps just a comment from me. I thought what the village staff and the village did with respect to Village Acres for street lighting and sidewalks was a great approach. Street lighting is also on our initiative action plan, and the number 6 community, Pinehurst number 6 community, I think is ready to be engaged and have the staff engaged to carry this forward. If you remember and you look back on our annual surveys, street lighting and sidewalks has always come up very high with respect to the dissatisfaction level, if you will. But the president of the Homeowners Association and other board members would be interested, and I think we're still looking perhaps at having sometime in May at their next quarterly meeting where there'd be an opportunity for us to engage the Homeowners Association with respect to that and kind of carry on what I thought was a very successful approach in addressing this issue for Village Acres.
Okay, next slide. And what you see on this slide, again, in that big wider column toward the middle of the page, that's our initiative action plans that we've identified. And then you can see how those initiative action plans impact the budget over the 5-year period. And you can see the Police Department accreditation. This is a CALEA accreditation. It's the same program that Southern Pines went through. And as we learned when Earl went up to the conference here a couple of weeks ago, it turns out that Aberdeen and the Moore County Sheriff's Department seem to be kicking this off at the same time as we are as well. It's a national, it's kind of the national standard for police accreditation. And what you see there for FY19 is basically the initial enrollment and startup costs with some of the software that's required to be in the program, and then the annual fees associated with maintaining the Power DMS software license that CALEA requires in the FY years 20, 21, and 22. And it's also included in that $7,365 figure for 23. But there's also some site work visit type expenses associated with why that number is a little bit higher. With regard to the EMS facility relocation and partnering with Moore County to relocate that facility, these numbers are just a little bit deceiving, and I want to make sure everybody understands the the fundamentals of this agreement. What we intend to do, and what we've been negotiating with Moore County to do, and what we kind of have a draft and tentative agreement with Moore County to do that hasn't been to either board yet, is to partner with them whereby we build a new facility, which would be an addition to our fire station next door, and we enter into an agreement whereby they would pay us a lease to use that facility, and part of that process would also include them donating, or part of the, we call it a swap, but part of the process would be that we take ownership of the current EMS property, less the buildings that sits over on McCaskill. The county has some plans to move those buildings and use them elsewhere. Not sure of the specifics of that, but it's not in the village limits. And we would, the financing or the lease would be such that, at least in the draft plan we're using right now, the county's lease payment would effectively reimburse us for the construction of the new facility plus interest in 10 years. And after that 10 years, the building would remain in Village Pinehurst ownership. They would continue a lease arrangement, but at a lower rate, given the fact that the building would be paid off. And we would have ongoing maintenance responsibility, just like any typical lessor-lessee type of an arrangement like that. So that shows, you know, a $281,000 total expense at the end of 5 years, but that's not taking into account the fact that we would be collecting fees for several more years that would balance that out. The third one there, you can see the long-range comprehensive plan. Everybody here, I think, knows that we've already spent some money in that regard as a result of entering into that contract. So some of these expenses are straddling years, but you can see that the lion's share of that expense takes place in FY19, and that's a combination of the contract expense and some operational support expenses that we foresee with regard to advertising and promoting public engagement meetings and supporting those meetings. And the lion's share of that would also take place in 19, but that $5,000 figure for FY20 is also an operational expense that we foresee as we complete that process. Moving on to the streetscape enhancements, you can see, and I don't have the itemized listing of how we're spending this money, but the intent is to continue to improve and connect our you know, the streetscape enhancements that we've been producing over the last several years by coming down from the manor down past the new Pinehurst Brewery down to the intersection down here by the Arboretum, and then turning and going up across the commercial side of McCaskill, and trying to enhance that and better posture it along with this EMS move for future commercial retail development that would be beneficial to our community. With regard to pedestrian connectivity, you see this is what we used to call sidewalk funding. What we did, we just moved the funding that we had in this year and next year and the year after that, and we pushed it back a couple of years, recognizing the fact that based on a council director, and we want to know what the community thinks about this, and the best way to find out about how the community thinks about it is to take advantage of the comprehensive plan. So it'll be a focus area in the comprehensive plan, and whatever comes of that, this is money that's in the budget to address the needs that our community thinks are important with regard to pedestrian connectivity and facilities once that plan is adopted. Street lighting, you see an ongoing kind of small sums of money. As we've talked about before, street lighting is not a particularly challenging project with regard to the finances. It's just challenging to get Duke Energy to come in and actually do the work. So, you know, to the degree that our neighborhoods want to say that they want to enter into this conversation, and the result is that we would be putting in streetlights in support of their desires, then this is the money that we would be using to do that. That next line, you know, it's easy to look at that and say that's the community center, but it's really more than that. The lion's share of the expenses are in fact community center related, it's not all community center. And you can see a pretty substantial outlay there in FY19, obviously, because that's where we have the, you know, the community center $4.1 million earmarked for that project. Also included in that $4.3+ million is paving the Cannon Park parking lot and replacing and upgrading the Wicker Park playground. We may have some dialogue with partnering with the school, given the fact that they want to put the temporary school out there and they have a need for a temporary playground. We are initiating some conversation with them about a cost-sharing situation where rather than them doing a temporary solution, they help us produce a permanent solution, which is bringing our expenses down on that project. And then in the out years, you see some numbers that are, you know, a little bit north of $100,000. That's the net. That's the net difference between the change in operational revenues and operational expenses as a result of all of these projects, but mostly because of the community center. I would note that you can see that number in FY 2021 is a little bit higher, 167,000, give or take. And that's the reason that's higher is because that's where we have earmarked, or we plan to undertake the master plan for the West Pinehurst Park. And again, this is directly feeding out of, or we expect it to be directly feeding out of the comprehensive plan. And so that's why it's timed that way. The permit and inspections process improvement, that Birdie has concluded. Looked at the recommendations. They did a great job, but you know, as is always the case with automation and making things easier and better, it's kind of expensive sometimes. But so what you see there is the anticipated software cost associated with helping us be more efficient and more responsive to our customers' needs in that regard. You can see the National Baldrige Award expenses there. We've had some discussion about whether or not the timing is appropriate. I think at this point I'm comfortable saying is appropriate. You might find that in the next year or two we may come back to you and tell you we might want to move that back. And I say that because to me the bigger priority with regard to focused internal improvement efforts and continuous improvement efforts is the police department accreditation. I want to make sure that our staff and our administrative staff in particular is aligned to support that effort and make sure that we get the most out of that. So you can see those expenses there. There's a kind of a mixture of the actual expenses associated with going with the program, into the program, as well as some of the ongoing contract work with Deb Manzo to provide some of our coaching and guidance to help us through that process. And then the last IAP, succession planning, is just a staff effort. And so that's taken some time, but it's not a costly thing for us. And I guess I'd like to again pause for any questions that you might have.
So Jeff, I want to be sure I understand. So on community center, it sounded like you said that expenses in FY 2020 and beyond are incremental expenses to the current budget. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so incremental to what would be the budget. It's a good way to look at it. What would be the budget if we did not build the community center?
But is that, so then what about the streetscape things? Isn't that that's the actual cost of those initiatives?
Yes. Because there are no offsetting revenues and things like that.
Okay, so this is incremental net expense.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, and when we get into the budget meetings, we're going to do a deeper dive on all this stuff.
Or I think we produced this stuff before. I think it'd be very easy for us to dust it off. If you want to look at it a work session before the budget work session to reacquaint everybody with that and dig into it with a finer tooth comb, we could do that as well if that's.
I think that'd be good on the community center only because one of the questions that people keep asking is what is going to be the cost of operating the community center?
Right.
And I think you've got to look at what we're doing today,
Mhm.
and now look at the net new expenses, net new revenue.
Right.
And it's, I think
Yeah.
it's a little arithmetic class that'll be beneficial.
You're right, and we have heard a lot of comments, and I guess for the audience's benefit, I would like to convey that I think we've taken a very holistic approach to the financial impact of this community center. There have been some concerns about whether or not we have accounted for, the maintenance, the utilities, and on and on and on, and we really have made that effort. I don't expect it to be perfect. We don't have a comparable building, exactly the same building to compare this thing to with regard to maintenance costs and utilities and costs and the like, but we do have big buildings like this one and the fire station and the police station that we can boil it down to a per square foot basis and make a pretty educated guess, and that's what we did with regard to the operational expenses. There's some additional staffing that's associated with this. It's a new building that has to be maintained. It's not a completely incremental. We have other facilities maintenance challenges which were about to be at the tipping point anyway, that were going to require us to hire a new maintenance technician, and that's in the plan for this coming year. But part of that requirement is also this facility, and to that extent, those additional incremental or expected incremental maintenance worker expenses are also factored into this thing.
And I know that we're reversing out the money that we've saved away for the community center, and now it's making its way into our budget. But are we actually dispersing the funds in a single year?
It's all going into the capital projects fund. So with regard to with regard to the general fund account, which what you're really looking at later on here in the presentation, it is dispersed all in 1 year. I expect that when we build the facility, it will be on an as constructed basis. But the truth is that, and John can correct me if I'm wrong in my interpretation of what I've heard him say before, but the truth is, with regard to the accounting practices, we have to demonstrate that we have the funds available
Right.
in our budget before we start the project.
So that's why it looks like you have to have the money available to spend in a single fiscal year, but really you're going to have it in FY19, even though you might not disperse it until 2020. Some
of it,
portion
yeah.
of it, yeah.
But it wouldn't be coming out of the general fund, it'd be coming out of the capital fund.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wherever John locks it up.
And also, Jeff, the expenses in 2020 to 2023 and related to that are not just the community center. They're the renovate Rashwicker Park, improvements in Cannon Park, right? Or is it all community center?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the overwhelming majority of that is in fact community center. The one significant difference is there in 2021, and as I described, that's the reason that number is bigger, 167 versus 100 to 110 or so.
Updating the plan. Yeah.
Is the master plan for West Pinehurst Park.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful to have a session where we dive into this detail a little bit more so that we all understand what we're agreeing to.
Would you all like us to bring that to you at the next work session so we can kind of reacquaint where we are on this?
If not then the next one, but before we start the budget meetings.
Sure.
That would be fine.
Okay.
Everyone in
Like I
agreement?
said, I think I'm pretty sure that we showed in a fair amount of detail that information last July, after Claire asked us to take a step back and look at and that was actually a regurgitation of some work we'd done before, an update of some work we'd done before. So we have the data. We probably just need to update it again and revalidate it, and it's a pretty easy thing to do, I think.
We can't over-communicate on this, yeah.
Okay, next slide. All right, so there's a lot going on other than budget and things that, that cost money. You know, we invest a lot of energy in our organization trying to get better, trying to be more efficient and more effective, improve our work environment, and on and on and on. And you know, as a result of the retreat process, as well as some engagement we did with our village employees writ large, we identified a total of 104 different opportunities for innovation and improvement over this 5-year period. And I'm not going to cover all that in detail, but what you see on this slide are 15 different higher level initiatives, if you will, 3 of which are birdies and 12 are aces that we, with your help, identified to help improve our processes and service delivery. And I'll move you over to the right-hand side of the slide, the aces there. In this year and in this coming year and FY20, we'd like to study whether or not we can find better contractual arrangements for maintenance of our diesel vehicle fleet. In FY20, we want to review our police dispatch processes to try to help make that more efficient and effective. Also in 20, we would like to take a look at how we might better position our workforce, if you will, down at the Fair Barn to meet the 7-day-a-week requirements and that continual grind. And rather than bring people in at odd hours and overtime and the like, maybe it may make more sense to hire part-time staff. Of course, we would be coming back to you with a recommendation on that. In 20 also, you see a lot of these are in 20, we would like to evaluate solid waste return pickups. It's kind of there's a lot of it goes on in our community, and it's not uniformly distributed amongst our neighborhoods for some reason, even when we change our staff around. But it's costly and it's inefficient, so we want to try to figure out how we can work better with our customers to avoid having to backtrack our solid waste crews to pick up stuff all the time. Also, we'd like to look at automating timesheets, insourcing road patching. You know, our road conditions continue to be a hot button item for our community, and a lot of folks would like us to find a way to do better in a lot of regards. And so we were wondering, you know, given the fact that we have such challenges, you know, in some regards with the contract work that we do to fill potholes and holes and things like that, but also maybe to a greater extent with the work that Moore County does after they do utility cuts. Or in both of our cases, we're contracting with outside agencies to do it, and to varying degrees, we're not happy with the result. And so we're wondering if maybe an insourcing or a different type, some sort of a different arrangement might give us better results going forward. We're looking at updating potentially, or at least looking at the potential of updating the agenda software that we use to support all of our village meetings in 20. And also, and then moving on to FY21, there's been a request from the community that we consider making the availability of our meeting spaces online available in real time. So we would like to look at that. We also want to look at our purchasing processes and how we can we can improve on those and standardize to the extent that's beneficial. In FY22, mobile technology for public services, you may recall that we've been here before. We thought this was important, and the idea is so that, you know, when our crews are out there, they don't have to call something in, and they don't have to come back to the public services yard to check off a completed task. They can just, you know, log on to it while they're stopped at wherever they were doing what it was that they could do. They could just check it off and say it's done and move on to the next project. So from a standpoint of efficiency, we would like to do that. So we're going to revisit that again. We may want to automate our accounts payable to cut down on the demand of our front desk folks as well as the finance staff. And then in also 22, it says performance management system. That's our our employee evaluation system. So we're going to take a look at whether or not our current system is still the best option. And then over in the Birdie section, you can see that in 19 and 20, we're going to be looking again at fire department staffing. You know, this is one of those things where you know, a funny thing happened on the way to the market. A couple of years ago, we did the right thing with regard to entering into an agreement with the county, whereby we would train our firefighters to conduct the more rudimentary EMS services and contract with the county to send them on all EMS-related calls as a backup, if you will, to the county EMTs and their ambulances. And I think that's benefited our community greatly. We did it at the time thinking that it wasn't going to place additional demand on our staffing or other meaningful expenses other than just, you know, the gas to put in the trucks and some maintenance. What we're finding is that these calls are really significantly increasing the maintenance costs on our vehicles. And so you might be asking, but we're talking about staffing. Why is maintenance on the vehicles important? And I'm getting there. We're wondering if we might be better off, rather than sending our big heavy fire trucks out there on all these calls, to have a smaller response vehicle that we could send it out with a two-person crew to do that. But then the follow-on to that is how do we make sure that we're positioned to respond with a full crew of firefighters while those guys are out doing that EMT stuff. And so that's part of this study. Also as part of the study, you may recall when the fire department went through their accreditation, there was a big foot stomp recommendation that we needed to consider adding a dedicated person on the fire staff to do our fire-related inspections rather than doing the kind of ad hoc procedures that we had done in the past. So that's another big thing, and I think we'll be looking at, and there are other things as well. 20, we're looking at insourcing of solid waste. This is really, I mean, the timing is really geared toward the contractual arrangement we have to support Pine Wild right now. And so if there's a time to do it, that's the time to do it. We're not recommending we do it, but I think it makes sense to, again, look at that situation and whether or not we can be more effective and more efficient and support our Pine Wild customers better with our services than with the contracted services that are available otherwise. And then finally, document imagery. That was a lot of stuff. Did I wear you out? Is there any questions? Okay.
Good, all good.
Okay. And then so the meat of it. This is the big deal, I guess. How does it impact the budget? And so as I said, this is high level stuff. There's not a lot of details here, but I just want to call attention to some high points. The first thing is what you'll see is that this plan anticipates the current tax rate in FY 2019, and then a shift to a revenue neutral rate of what we currently expect to be about 28 cents versus the current rate of 29.5 cents in 2020 and 2023, and that's tied to the next county evaluation, revaluation of the countywide property. And so you'll see on the next slide that we use that 28-cent figure for 20, 21, 22, and 23. Whether or not that actually winds up being the answer is really immaterial. If it's not the right answer, if it's not the budget neutral a revenue neutral solution when we actually get the details, the impact on our village budget would be the same as long as you continue to follow a revenue neutral policy. If you decide to deviate from that revenue neutral policy and either push the tax rate higher or go lower, then it would be different. But otherwise, the numbers you're going to see on the following slide, you would expect them to be relatively valid. As I had mentioned in a couple of previous meetings, and now I can say it with certainty, we're in a position to pay the $4.1 million bill for the community center without any financing requirement, and that's certainly good news. Another big thing that we added about $270,000 to our resurfacing budget that's proposed, and this is specifically tied to the community input that we continue to receive about the need to invest more heavily in our street resurfacing. And you can see that's broken out between $200,000 that are dedicated to increased resurfacing. And to put that into context for folks in the room, we currently spend about $900,000 on street resurfacing every year. And so this would be bringing that up to about $1.1 million a year. And then, John, we talked about adding in a CPI to that in future years. Have you done that as well? Okay, so we may look at that in the future. And then also another $70,000 to our street patching. That takes us, so again, to put that in context, we were currently budgeted for $220,000. We actually spent a little more than that this year because of the increased demands out there. And we're budgeting now for $290,000. No new full-time positions beyond what was approved in last year's plan, and those positions, those 4 positions were approved in last year's plan, were the maintenance technician that I spoke about earlier to maintain our facilities, the performance manager, an admin assistant, which is also tied to the community center. Although I would say that in this budget, you see that as an FTE. As we continue to study that, we think that we may be able, it's possible that we may be able to get away with not having an incremental FTE requirement with that, and we may instead be able to deal with that with something between 0 and 1. But that one needs some more study. So it's in there as one full FTE right now, and then also a GIS technician. This is an effort for us to come into the 21st century. I think that we lag behind a lot of communities that do things really well with regard to their automation and stuff in the GIS world. We have taken our efforts to utilize the capacity that Moore County has probably to its fullest extent. They can only do so much as well. We had a contractual arrangement where they would support us when we had specific needs, but it's kind of spotty and sporadic, and we can do so much more to support our staff and our community with real visible stuff if we add that position in FY20. Merit raises for employees in this budget are funded at an average of 3%, and that's the same level as we have been, well, since I've been here, and I think a long time before that as well. We have in this budget continued support, operational support to Given Memorial Library of $100,000 annually, and I want to say that they have asked for $200,000 this year. And this is, I think we've got to have that dialogue with them. You all need to be involved in that dialogue with them. This is an important question. But what I will say is that after we have had the benefit of looking at a more detailed breakout of their budget and their expenses, it is our belief that the library, in reality, is doing okay with our current level of funding. And what is really creating a drain on the organization as a whole is the outpost. And so, to maybe not put it all that bluntly, John and I don't believe that it's appropriate for us to increase funding as a way to subsidize a bad business decision on the part of that organization. However, there might be an opportunity to engage them in a conversation about, we would love to enhance your library services, and so if there's a way that we can consider, that you all can consider increased funding that would result in a benefit to our community, that in the area of library services, that might be a very fruitful conversation to have.
let me ask a question for Judy and Kevin. You're more closely tied to the library and the foundation and how to move forward. Is this something that has come up in your discussions, or is this part of it, or is this a completely separate issue from what you're doing?
No, I mean, we're looking at all the business aspects of it, and I think it's, you know, we just got to figure out what the path forward is, and we don't have those answers. It could certainly require more funding in general from the village, and who knows exactly what time that might happen. But I think that's all of that's on the table.
Which would mean, for me, the operating costs for the library plus the outpost.
Well, we're looking at the current operation, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What the future might be different. So I think we aren't really trying to predict exactly what that is until we work our way through that.
Now, but it's in the calculus of what you're of the larger picture that you and Kevin are working.
Everything's on the table, and
Great.
probably things we don't know that are on the table.
Including a pathway to multiple times to get public input.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
it's important to say, you know,
We're not ready for that yet.
we're not ready.
Absolutely.
We're not ready, but we want the public involved.
I'll look forward to you guys' report then later.
I think if you were to survey the public, the outpost may not have been the best business decision, but I haven't talked to anybody who doesn't like having the outpost here in our village. So
I go there twice a day, so.
Absolutely, yeah, you're a
Very cool
professional
space.
client.
Yeah.
We all do.
Very
So
cool space.
it's something to be considered, I'm sure.
Okay, and then the last comment there, you see $1.2 million is in the budget for 21 to 23 pedestrian facilities. Again, there's no specific intent for that right now, and it's a placeholder out there to help to accommodate whatever comes out of the comprehensive plan conversation that we have with our community with regard to pedestrian facilities.
Jeff, could you help define what the scale and scope of pedestrian facilities includes? For example?
Well, Mark, it ranges everything from, sidewalks, to greenway trails, to clay paths, to other options that...
Pretty much all of the above.
Yeah.
If you choose to expand that to include bicycle facilities, the BPAC is going to recommend pedestrian and bicycle projects probably for you to consider. Hopefully the comprehensive plan will help to maybe clear some of that up and give us some ideas to choose from that. I know our BPAC committee will hopefully be actively involved in the comp plan process as well, and I know they have ideas that they would like to see come out of that for you. So.
Okay.
Any other comments on this slide?
So can you comment on how it is that we do not need any financing for the community center?
How about if I save that for the next slide? Is that okay? Okay. All right, so this is how it all breaks out in terms of the big numbers on the budget for the next 5 years. And you can see, again, if I could call your attention to the top line there, the tax rate, you'll see that goes from 29.5 cents to potentially 28 cents in FY20 and beyond, and that's subject to the revaluation. Stumble over that all the time, and it will depend on how those figures actually come out. You can see the full-time equivalent change there, currently 139, go to 141 in 2019, and then 143 in 20 and beyond. With regard to the general fund operating revenues, I just call attention to the fact that number is bigger in FY 2020 than it is in the other adjacent columns, and that is a reflection of the $1 million that we expect to get back from the library, given the fact that they've never been able to get the fundraising underway for that project that was envisioned many years ago. Then I would go 2 lines below that, and you can see almost $4.1 million transferring out to the Community Center Capital Projects Fund. And then if you look at the next line below that, operating income or loss, obviously that results in a pretty big net out of the general fund of $3 million. And then if you slide one column to the right in FY 2020, you'll see that that $1.9 billion is substantially bigger than the numbers to the right of it in subsequent years. And again, that's a reflection of the library $1 million that are coming back, mostly. With regard to capital expenditures, you see that you don't see the big library funding there because it's going out to a different fund. Okay, so that's our other capital expenditures that are required in those various years. And then I guess what I would do is I'd bring you down to the gray band at the bottom of the page, or brown, depending on what you're looking at. The general fund balance as a result of this budget and this operating plan. I would call everybody's attention to the fact that your policy is currently 30 to 40%, and we've generally been above that recently. We thought this community center was going to push us down below that threshold for many years. It's not really turning out that way. And as you can see, we rebound fairly quickly, then settle down a little bit again due to some bigger non-community center capital purchases in FY 2021. And then we settle out and it starts climbing again in the 44% range. And the next line down, operating margin. And this is one of the key things that we look at when we finally balance all these numbers. And it's important because there's kind of a rule of thumb that says you need a certain amount of money, a certain proportion of your annual budget allocated to capital replacement. And so what we really like to see there in that number is somewhere between 89% and 91%, and you can see we're generally right there. And that ensures that we have a healthy capital replacement plan going forward, or at least have the resources to do so. And then you can see that it bumps up a little bit in 2023. Those of you that were on the council last year, you may remember, I think it did the exact same thing in 2022 in last year's budget that we showed you. It's not anything to get excited about. 1 year deviations from that range, or even 2 year minor deviations are nothing to get excited about. We just want to generally be in that 89 to 91% range over a period of years. And then getting back to Judy's point, these numbers assume a budget to actual variance, which says that we expect to get 101% of the revenues that we forecast, and we expect to only spend 95% of what we forecast. That assumption is actually built into the budget. Now, when we go back and look at our performance over the past couple of years, we have been outside that range. Our revenue forecasts have come in at about 103%, and our expenditure forecast, our actual expenditures have actually come in, probably closer to 90, 92%. I don't recall the actual number. But that's why we are in a position where we are able to fund the community center when we didn't expect to be able to fund the community center. And at first blush, that sounds like a really good problem to have, and I guess it really kind of is a good problem to have, but we got to do better with regard to our budgeting, I think. We got to do better with regard to this forecasting. So we've got our eye on this because we want to get every beneficial outcome out of whatever appropriate tax rate is appropriate for our community that we can, and we don't want to leave anything on the table on either side of that balance sheet. So we're going to watch this. I will tell you that as I went through our budgeting process this year, I was almost nervous. I had a conversation with John about halfway through because John told me, in order to pay for the community center, we got to cut, I think it was $900,000 out of the draft budget. And I was kind of nervous that we weren't going to get there because I had this general sense that the low-hanging fruit wasn't there that we had seen in previous budgets. And I think that's a reflection that we're getting better with regard to looking at actual performance in terms of budget. You know, not just what did you budget last year, but what did you spend, and how does that compare to what you spent the last year? And having a more meaningful dialogue with our department heads in that regard and getting it closer. So we're going to watch it because I think it's important. But I think it was a very good question to ask.
So my next question is the $1 million that's coming out from the library. You're just assuming it's available for all forward-going expenses.
It goes into the general fund, unless you all choose to enter into some other agreement and so it's what to do with that in terms of the budget right now is kind of a
right. But right now it's just woven into the.
It's
fabric.
just there right now, yeah. And as you look at it again, if you look at our fund balance getting out there in 20 and 22. If you want to enter into another agreement with the library, there's room for it. So it's not a make or break.
We'll see what will come of, the task force and what you all can.
I think it's, clear that something's going to happen. What that something is, how big it is, how much it is, it's out there. So I'm just looking for ways to plan for it and where there'll be room.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? And if not, we're really at the council discussion phase. And what I would just like to ask you, in addition to whatever other comments you have or dialogue you'd like to enter into, I mean, the big questions on our mind as staff is, have we sufficiently addressed your highest priorities in this plan, and or are there other things that you think we need to address or address more fully? And are there any other significant modifications that you'd like us to make to this plan at this point before we go into the kind of the finalization phase?
Council?
I have a pet project for Pinehurst to have the best roads in town. And so I think, your increment of, $270,000 is good. But when you looked at what people ask us, or in the last 3 years when we asked people, what are your top capital costs, what we spend money on, street resurfacing last year and the year before was number one.
Yep. Right.
So I think that we ought to look at that, and there shouldn't be that much disconnect between what's their number one priority for capital expenditure and their number 7 priority, which was the community center in those 3 years. So I think we just got to figure out, how do we get the best roads? What does that cost? And so that every day somebody's benefiting from their tax dollars.
Okay, other comments? I think you've hit the mark as far as I'm concerned. Done a great job. Other comments?
I think I look forward to the detailed budget review that's coming up in May, but also the warm-up of that before we go in. So
just looking at these key dates, the budget, you're going to present the budget on May 8th, and then we're going to go to budget work sessions after that.
Right. So it's a draft budget at that time. You don't actually adopt the budget until June.
Okay.
In fact,
should have put that on the slide. I'm sorry.
I think there's some re-swizzling that could be done.
Yes.
I wouldn't spend a penny on streetscape on the other side of McCaskill until the Traditions is built, for example. But that's something we all need to talk about and kick around. About where does money go and when. So.
In previous years, the budget presentation was just giving it to us, and there wasn't any presentation. Is there going to be an actual presentation this year?
Yeah, and there was last year too.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, and in some other years, I don't know, John probably remembers this, we were just presented with the budget, but there will be an actual presentation.
Yes.
Last year, okay. Great. Any other comments about the presentation? I think it's very clear. I think you've addressed our main concerns with the, with Judy's comment about roads being, kind of considered, which we can always do. So, okay. Good job.
I think that's the end of the agenda, right?
It is. Unless there's any other business from council members?
Just a question. What I would like to see if we could do is we could use our social media tools to be sure we broadcast the dates for these meetings that are coming up with respect to the transportation. There's 2 of them in a row that are coming up. On the 17th, the comprehensive transportation plan is here from 6:30 to 8:30, and the following day, the 18th, at 2 p.m., we're going to rack and stack and prioritize the 25 projects of the 10 most. So, in the interest of getting this out to the public, if there's a way that we could broadcast that, Jeff, that'd be great. I don't know if that's already been done, but
right now,
if not, if we could do that, I think that's needed.
Certainly.
The date that you're going to be prioritizing the projects?
Remember, there's 2 dates: Monday the 17th or Tuesday the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
The comprehensive transportation plan. There's a public meeting here where they're going to allow you to walk around.
But haven't all those projects already been prioritized?
It's essentially sort of.
Okay.
And that's because all of the communities were not with us yesterday when we went through it. So the rest of the other communities within Moore County are going to meet, and then we'll be in a position to say, here's what they are. And Jeff's going to talk about more of that in our work session.
Okay. And maybe I could help to clarify that. I mean, there's really 2 related but different discussions going on here. One is the desire to adopt a comprehensive transportation plan for the county, and as everybody knows, that's been ongoing for several years now. The effort to update that and hopefully get it approved this summer. And that's the meeting next Tuesday, is to allow our community to engage on the specifics of that plan. And the other subject is our efforts to get currently identified projects funded by the state. And you'll see that there's a lot of overlap between the list on one versus the other, but it's not a one-for-one match. For example, the Western Connector, which is included in the draft comprehensive transportation plan right now, is nowhere near ready for even somebody to contemplate funding it. So it's not in that list of projects to prioritize for funding because it's not ready for that. On top of that, there's this discussion about whether or not the state of North Carolina is going to continue to pursue funding our projects if we don't get a comprehensive transportation plan adopted. And, we've been able to slide by in recent years, even though the state said a few years ago they weren't going to continue to do that. Looks like maybe we're okay again this year. But 2 years ago, when they come back around again and start doing a prioritization process, we may not be that fortunate.
And as you pointed out, there's only 2 counties in the state that don't have a comprehensive transportation plan. So we're trying to get over the hurdle so that we're not.
Great. I think we'll do that. I think we can do it this year. Okay. Any other business by council members? Okay. If not, we're going to ask for comments by attendees. Anyone in the audience would like to comment on anything? Okay. Okay. Come on up, Lynn.
Goldhammer again. I just had a couple questions about the rec center. What's going to be in that?
I think where's the
Picture?
Picture.
It's right over across the Village Hall. Yeah.
Got like a pool and things like that, or
what?
Is it like going to be a pool or gym or
no. A gym? a gym.
There's a gymnasium. There are several program-related activity rooms, and there's some office space. There's bathrooms, a conference room. Does that pretty much sum it up, Mark?
A kitchen.
The kitchen, yeah.
And there's more open meetings coming. There was just one 10 days ago with Charette in this room where everybody could come in and give them input.
Okay, and where's that going to be built?
Over in Cannon Park, the site of the former village hall that burned down.
Okay. All right. I guess I started wondering with that, like, there's a lot of small businesses in the area that make their money through health and fitness, and I was wondering how that might impact those small businesses. So that's just a curiosity I was putting out. I wasn't sure why you were moving is it going to be the EMS and the fire department? Or just
we're moving what?
Just partnering with the county to move their EMS crews and equipment into a new facility that would be an addition onto our fire station.
It would be moved over to here. I say, I just wasn't real clear on that, so I was just curious. And I was also wondering about the Baldridge Award. Is there a reason we're looking to submit a Baldridge Award application?
Certainly. This is, our efforts at continuous improvement, which we just chose to go use the Baldridge framework. It's a pretty well recognized, around the world and around the country, framework to use in the efforts to improve organizational effectiveness. But it's about improving organizational efficiency, performance, improving culture, leadership. It's about developing leaders. It's a 360-degree effort to improve the nature and performance of our organization.
Is there something wrong with the nature and performance of our organization that we need to go in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, every organization has opportunities for improvement.
They do, but you don't always have to do the Baldridge Award for $56,000.
It's not about the award, and I can't. I'm not in a position to put dollar figures on any of these decisions, but I will tell you that I think if we made an effort to go back and itemize over the last 5 years or so, the operational improvements, the effectiveness improvements, and the efficiency cost savings that we have achieved as a result of our efforts to use this framework, with or without an award, it dwarfs the investment that we're making. I think most successful organizations in the world are not afraid to invest in themselves, to improve their performance and their efficiency, and this is just an appropriate way for us to do it.
I'm all for building improvements and efficiency and effectiveness in organizations. I haven't always seen where Baldridge is the best approach, but it is one approach. But I guess one of my concerns when we wanted to go and do for the award itself, what that can do is bring extra attention to the town. And with that, do we start attracting people in? Like Pinehurst is the new in-place to live. It's got the Baldridge Award, in which case we start getting bombarded with, tens of thousands of more people trying to move to the area.
Lynn, I don't think anybody's going to move here because we have a most efficient government organization. However, I will tell you, I'm the only council member who was here before we even started the Baldridge approach. And people have heard me say this before. We were throwing darts at the wall to figure out where to spend your money and my money. Mm-hmm. Now we are doing it in a very efficient manner. We are measuring what we do. Mm-hmm. It's an entirely different world, and I am so glad that we are doing this because it is the most effective thing I have ever seen, and I've been in local government and around local government for 30 years. This is, when people say you have to run government like a business, this is it. And are we going to attract more people? I don't think so. I think Pinehurst attracts people regardless of what we do with our inner management. But to me, I agree with Jeff that we have seen more productivity improvements, cost effectiveness. Now that we have a framework, we know where we're going, and we're measuring what we do. And everything every employee does is measured. And I think at first it was a little bit of a task, but I think our employees really like it now because they know that what they do, they are being rewarded for by, having this measurement system. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like I'm the only one who was here before, and I'm here now, and I cannot tell you the difference. It's just amazing.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying, it's a great system to use, mm-hmm. and you can use it without going for an award. And I just wasn't sure if there was value in the amount of time and effort and energy that goes into putting one of those awards together, because I've had to do it before.
I think there's a value to our employees that they have worked very hard.
I think that's a very good observation.
Getting the award.
That's a very helpful observation, I think, because it allows me to make this point. Yeah, there's real value in just adopting the Baldrige framework and doing the best you can and learning what you can internally the organization, and you can do great things in your organization as a result. But there's nothing that will produce results like going through the process of submitting the award, preparing for the award, and having the on-site evaluators come in and coach and develop you along the way. And so again, this is investment. It's not about the award. It's about the process and about what we learn going through the process.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Any other comments from attendees? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our regular meeting, and we'll probably take a 5-minute break until we go back into our work session. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
We have a motion by John Baldrige, second by John Cashin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess before our work session begins.